Morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Here to make a presentation about the class and pay study. The classification and compensation study by the Archer Company was initiated in October of 2014. The study included a review of all full-time and part-time graded positions and conduct a market review to recommend a new pay plan, job classifications, and FLSA status. Additionally, to review and recommend revisions to leave and benefits. The Archer Group presented their recommendations to the Board of Commissioners August 23, 2016 in a work session, with a financial impact at approximately $12 million annually. The board had reserved $10 million in the general fund for the implementation. The Board of Commissioners held a special called work session on January 4th, 2017 to discuss those recommendations. Action items from this work session have been completed. The department managers and elected officials have reviewed the recommendations from Archer regarding their full-time positions. Their feedback was reviewed by the county manager and then forwarded to Archer to include in the pay plan recommendations. The feedback from management included any changes to address critical need positions where departments have been challenged in filling those positions. Human Resources has completed reviews with the department managers and elected officials of the recommendations for their part-time positions. With their feedback, the county has developed and recommends a new pay plan for part-time employees. And the reinstatement of the compensation committee was accomplished by board action on January 24th, 2017 to review the personnel policy, compensation, and benefit recommendations, as well as the workforce satisfaction survey. Their first meeting of the committee occurred February 13th, with their recommendations to come before this board at a future date. In January, the board identified an additional $3 million in the FY16 fund balance to be used in the implementation of the pay study. The recommended implementation date before you today is June the 4th, 2017. The FY17 and 18 cost for implementation is approximately $12.1 million. The Archer recommendation for full-time employees includes a new pay scale with new pay grade, minimum, midpoint, and a maximum. Employees below the new minimum for their classification will be moved to the new minimum. Employees below the new market control point for their classification will be placed at a salary between minimum and market control point based on the amount of time that they have been in their current classification. And their last three performance ratings. This will be applied using a 10-year spread from the minimum to the market control point. The county recommendations for part-time include a new minimum, a midpoint, and a maximum on an existing pay scale. Employees below the new minimum for the classification will be moved to the new minimum. Employees who participated in the study by completing a PDQ will be able to appeal the recommendation for their classification and grade through their chain of command to the Archer for full-time and to the Human Resources Department for part-time employees. The county manager will be charged with resolving all appeals. The recommended salary adjustment is either up to the minimum or placement in the range based on time in class and performance ratings. Therefore, recommended salary is not appealable. Therefore, the recommendation before the Board of Commissioners today is to approve the Archer Company's recommendations impacting full-time positions and incumbents as presented at the August 23, 2016 work session, including implementation of option 3 recommended by the Archer Company, approve the attached recommended classification and pay plan for part-time graded positions, and authorize the county manager to resolve all employee appeals with implementation of recommended classification and pay systems to be effective June 4th, 2017, and further authorize the corresponding budget transactions.
And I move that the board authorizes the implementation of the recommended pay and class study as delivered by the Archer Company. And discussion. And Commissioner Cupid.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank you, Chairman, for your energy around this agenda item and believe that your presence has provided significant momentum to seeing it be executed prayerfully today. I just wanted to state, as I've stated before, that our ability to provide service through our county is directly correlated to those who provide that service, which are employees here at Cobb County. And while there may have been ongoing debate about how we best retain and even attract those here in the county, I am confident that this is a significant step forward to us not just talking about it, but us doing something about it. I'm also pleased that we have reinstated our compensation committee to look at recruitment and retention of employees beyond this study, so that we can again ensure that we are best able to provide excellent service throughout the county by having an excellent workforce to do so. Finally, I just want to share that there has been some criticism of our plan, as it does not completely recognize the uniqueness of some policies or organizations with the county, and does not provide pay that reflects that uniqueness. But I've shared this in other settings, and we'll share this again today, that our pay and compensation study is an objective analysis to look at how we are ensuring that our pay is equitable to those in similar organizations, and also to ensure that persons are being paid equitably in comparable positions to their counterparts in other organizations. And I am pleased to say that what we have before us is going to help get us there. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you also mention or talk about how, if there's an appeal process, for example, if we inadvertently classified something different than what fits our criteria that maybe we missed? I know that we have some certain situations, possibly in public safety, that might meet that criteria, and we've gotten some information from courts and things like that. I just want to make sure there's a way to correct it if it's necessary before we implement it.
There will be an appeals process for the employees to file an appeal through their chain of command to address any of the recommendations, sir.
As well as the chain of command, if we miss something. It
Yes.
doesn't start with the employee, does it? It could start with a management or something.
It'll go through the chain of command, as Mr. Hagler pointed out, to Archer, and then to me, and then I will resolve it.
Okay, good, because I do know a couple things we need to talk about, but I don't want to hold this up, and want to make sure that we have a recourse if we have inadvertently looked at something or missed something.
And that's true, Commissioner, because we had all of our managers and elected officials looked at it, but some of the employees may not have seen some of it to great detail, and there's a process with that can be addressed.
Great, thank you. And I want to thank all of you for your efforts. I know this has been a long, hard process, going through reams and reams of data and making sure it's valuable and applicable to us. And I'm glad that we're finally doing it. Fully support it. Thank you.
Commissioner Weatherford, Commissioner Burrow.
Yes, thank you, Tony and Mr. H. and staff. I'm very excited to see this finally coming to a vote. It's been a couple years that we've been looking at this, and it's high time that we implement or vote on this to implement it. And we have the best employees. They do go above and beyond day in and day out, and they need to be compensated accordingly. The other thing I'm happy about is that we can cover this first step, initial phase, with the money set aside and additional funding that we have, so that it doesn't affect any increase in our budget or taxes at this point. So, and I do think, that we will continue to look at this, not just through the appeal process, but down the road through the compensation committee and all of us looking at things that we can implement to make sure certain departments that need to be increased are. So I agree and support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrow. Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I want to thank Tony, you and your staff, and the county manager and for all the hard work and the discussion that we've had on this topic. Mr. Chairman, I look at this as two components. One is pay and one is the classification. And I think as everyone knows, classification has not been looked at in way too many years. So I'm fully supportive of the classification part of the study. I have concerns about the pay. Yes, I think we need to make sure that our employees are paid appropriately for the tremendous job that they do. And, you know, the 3% merit raises that have been given over the last 3 years, I think reflects the board's commitment to doing that. My concerns are that this is in essence a across the board pay increase, with the exception of certain areas of public safety. And the two areas that this county has the most difficulty in getting employees is in public safety and IS. And my concern is that this does nothing to address the critical needs of the county from that regard. Yes, it's a good first step. And, you know, I understand Commissioner Cupid has said in the past that the scope of the study was to examine the pay and classification based on the market. But that was 2 years ago. This is now. We have critical needs for public safety and IS to move this county, not just forward, but to maintain the adequate level of services that the citizens expect. And so my concern is that I don't think this does this, and we're doing a $12 million commitment that is not, yes, we have one-time money to pay for this year and all of next year, but moving forward, you know, we're committing $12 million of a budget, which we all know is extremely tight. So what I'd need to see some commitment by this board or by you, the chairman, that we will address those critical needs in public safety and IS and any other department where we're having trouble. But my understanding is, in speaking with the county manager and Tony, that those, especially public safety, are the two areas where we're having the most difficulty, and that changes need to be made. You know, and it may be that those departments need to be paid more, even if market rate is not, just because the current pay that public safety makes now may meet market. It's not enough for us to get people to want the job. And the fact of the matter is we have extreme shortages and we can't keep the officers. And, you know, it takes almost an entire year to train a new officer, and we cannot continue to have this training cost because we can't keep the officers. And that holds true for 911. Those two in public safety are the most critical. We have to be able to retain our employees in order to provide the level of service. So I'd like to hear your comments and what kind of commitments we can have for that.
Well, thank you. First of all, I too also want to add my applause to the county manager and Mr. Hagler and all the directors for this work and this very important commitment by the county to its employees. I've said many times that this is my number one priority, to get this out of the barn and onto the street, and we've done that today, and we've done it with hard work. For those who are not aware, it was brought up last month, and there was some issues that the study was a boilerplate study, and that the numbers that were in the study did not reflect Cobb County requirements and positions. So, working with the board, we directed the county manager and the directors to go back to their staffs and their employees to take a look at those numbers and reaffirm them that they were, in fact, the numbers that are in the study reflect the market for Cobb County. And that's why we delayed this a month. But that was the only proviso was for the delay, was that we had to make sure the numbers were accurate. And I've been assured by every director of the staff plus the county manager, those numbers, in fact, do reflect Cobb County requirements and compensation for the market. Archer also came back with a statement to us apologizing for the product, that they used a template and obviously left some other counties in there, and that's been pointed out. But the bottom line is the numbers in the study reflect, as a starting point, the new market compensation standards for this county. I think it's important to also highlight a couple other things, and I'll also address what Commissioner Rod and also the members of the board have asked me to do. First of all, the last time we had a market survey done like this, paid for by a contractor, was in 2006. That was over 10 years ago. The last time we did an in-house market survey was in 2008, 9 years ago. So this survey was long overdue. Secondly, this elevation of compensation does not apply to every member of the county staff. I asked Mr. Hagler this morning for the numbers. We have roughly 5,000 employees in the county, and that, of course, involves employees that are part of other state constitutional officers, the sheriff's department, the judges. They themselves have their own salary schedule, but their employees come under this study. So they're part of that 5,000, and out of that, about 1,800 full-time employees will be affected by this market compensation study, and another 460 part-time employees. So we're not like the merit. We're not raising everybody up. We're looking at the market and seeing, in fact, which positions in our staff qualify for increased compensation. So roughly less than half of the employees will get this. So this is not a blanket. It's not a blanket program. I think that's important to realize that, because it goes to reflect how conscientious the board is at looking at the needs. We realize that every dollar that you provide to the board is your dollar, and we want to make sure that we spend it in the correct manner. So again, I want to emphasize that this market survey looks across the whole field of our employees, and which ones, if we don't elevate their compensation, would probably go back out into the field because they can get better compensation there. Secondly, I think it's important that we highlight the fact that in the last 3 years, this county staff has basically addressed, through the permitting process, by inspections, by just other many manifold responsibilities, has basically supported administratively the creation of a new mini city down around SunTrust Park and Battery Park. And they've done it without increasing the size of the staff. That is absolutely incredible and notable by itself. It is. And I think the staff has to be appreciated for that. They have carried this burden, and they carried it cheerfully, professionally, and I think that the reason the stadium is going to open up on time, all right, is large part because our county staff took on this responsibility, understood the importance of it, and did it. So this alone should drive the requirements for an increased, for relooking at their compensation. The third thing I want to point out is this is the very first step. This is not going to be a perfect product, but it's important that we get it out there. In other words, good is the enemy of good enough. We've looked at this. We realize there's going to be some situations that perhaps we haven't looked at appropriately or correctly, but the appeals process is going to take care of that. And secondly, we recognize, as Commissioner Ott has pointed out and other members of the board, that there are some specialties here that require additional resources. And I'll just simply use one example. Who among you in here would want to do a traffic stop at 2 o'clock in the morning? No good things happen after 2 o'clock, after midnight. And I remember when I was a group commander, I had a policy that unless you were married, you would be back at the barracks by midnight, because nothing good happens after midnight. And all the letters that I wrote to mothers and fathers is because their sons or their daughters did something after midnight that they shouldn't have been doing. So the kind of men and women who address this kind of public safety issue, they require special consideration because of the nature of their job. And I'm committed to keeping this item open in discussions with Tony Hagler, with the county manager, with the public safety director, with the FOP and other organizations, to make sure that we address this issue in a manner that reflects the special needs of their job. Commissioner Ott has also mentioned information support is an area. There are probably some other ones, like 9/11, but there's probably some other ones too. But the bottom line today is this is a dynamic process. Just because we're addressing this issue today does not mean that we're done with it. I'm going to be driving this issue just as hard as I've driven getting this thing out before the vote by February. Why is that? Because we want to ensure, as I've learned over my time, that nothing good happens unless you have an environment and a community where you can live safely. Everything depends on the foundation, you being able to live in a safe environment where you're treated equitably by our public safety officials. So we're going to be looking at this and these other areas to make sure that we perhaps look at introduce new ways of compensating them for the uniqueness of their job. And that's my commitment to you, Mr. Commissioner Rod, and anyone else on the board here, that we are not going to stop here until we address this issue and find a way to correct it. The last thing I want to mention here is that I want to make this very clear to all of you here and those that are watching. Quality is not cheap. You get what you pay for. And the danger we have in this county is that our public servants are so good that we take them for granted. And this goes way beyond the fact that everybody, that's the wrong word. Many look at government employees as being overpaid. Well, I think that if you could be in their shoes, they're kind of like that analogy I was using about the duck, you know? They're really nice people at the counter. You don't see the amount of work that they do under the water to make sure that when you walk away from the counter, you're taken care of. All the things they have to do to make sure that when you stop there and go to them for help, that when you walk away there, your problems are addressed in a way that reflects your need and standard for how you want to be treated by your public servant. But this comes with a cost. Now, we all know I'm committed to not raising taxes in 2018. And the only exception I've made is to the people with the cups. All right? There is some money in those cups because I'm willing to raise the millage rate to do that. Now, what happens in 2019 and beyond, we'll see what happens. But I can tell you one thing, nothing will happen without me working with the board. I'm working very hard with this board for my commitment to them was to be no surprises. So they're expecting me to come up with some ideas on how to do this. But the most important thing is that whatever we give to you today in the form of this motion isn't a Mike Boyce program or a Commissioner Rod program. This is a board program that reflects how we have gone to our constituents, in this case, the staff and other people, seen what their needs are, and then responded to it. So whether we have one person who has a concern or we have 5,000, I want you to know that your board hears these. And the only drawback is that we do it in a bureaucratic process, which is slow. But today, we're sending a signal to our staff and to this county that we're willing to pay for that quality that so many people take for granted. And I'm thankful for all the staff work that's gone into this. I'm thankful for what the commissioners have done for that. I'm thankful for the fact that Chairman Lee last year lived up to his commitment to not use resources that I would be involved in, which is how we found all the funding to do this and implement this through September of 2018. So I'm grateful for all the players in this, and I think that when we vote on this, this will reflect that this was a team effort that reflects how much we appreciate the team that we work for and who works for us. So with that, I call the motion. I'm sorry. Thanks for a second. I call the motion. Yeah, okay. And the motion, the question calls 5-0. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Board, I want to thank you as the board on behalf of the employees for approving this class and pay study. I also want to thank all of our department heads and elected officials and constitutional officers that work with us on the appeal process. In many of these studies, that process does not occur until after the board approved the study. So we were able to do this prior to, which then authenticated the report, as you stated, to Cobb County. And I just want to say thank you on all of our behalf and thank all of my department heads, elected officials, and constitutional officers that took the charge from you and worked with Tony and I to bring this product to you today as you as a board requested. And thank you.